solutions now are more distributed to the data products approach, that the responsibility for dedicated data products should be related to the chief data officer role. So I think the great challenge in those large organizations which are moving to the data products approach is that you, if you have the distributed systems, you need to have a real hard governance on all those things. Yeah. And that's, from my point of view, a kind of a main responsibility of a chief data officer. This chief data officer, of course, should have what you have mentioned, Mustafa, should have a kind of understanding in terms of what's possible, what's not possible, and so on. But the main risk is that they are caring about the governance, the handling of the data, not in terms of that they are really aware of the insights of the data. I think business departments or the business areas will more in the role of the data product ownership, because they know the data insights and everything like that. But I'm not sure if those data products owners are in a line organization reporting to a chief data officer. Yeah, so maybe this is a kind of a matrix organization where the chief data officer is more caring about standardization, usage of dedicated data platforms, so that you don't have each and everything in your organization. What could happen if you let all the guys play with technology? But in general, the main risk is what's going on with data in terms of preparing the data in those data products and using the data and giving access to the data for others in the organization, or maybe third parties for using the data. And the same is a little bit more risky in terms of AI initiatives. Yeah? Not only preparing data, but what you're doing with AI. And that's, I think, an additional responsibility, which normally is located in the CIO, so the real C-suite area. And maybe the chief data officer, the chief data analytics officer, and the chief data and AI officer, however you call them, yeah, are currently extending the capacity, yeah, of management, yeah, in that specific section, adding additional resources to the CIO section. So I think most of the organization are relating those roles to that area of the real C-suite and distributing a little bit the responsibility.
Yeah, just to add it here. So the question is more towards that, do you see a CDO role there, or you currently don't see CDO role? And if you see, is it changing more frequently or not? Because yeah, people are trying to cope up, but it seems they are not.
I think in terms of the huge change in terms of when you move from a centralized approach to a decentralized approach is not making a finger snap and implementing a new technology and everything is happy and clear for that. So that is a real technology challenge. That's a real organizational challenge when you want to move to that approach. So that means that there, for a certain time frame, there's a dedicated need for additional management capacity to manage the move and all what you face in terms of walking that way. Yeah. So I think the CDO is currently really needed. I think it will not change the next few years because there's a quite high dynamic in the market. So nobody oversees all the capabilities and features of technologies. So you need dedicated persons which are aware of all those things, yeah, and caring about how to handle that things, or maybe think about if you should use that as a company, and so on. So I see those roles. Yeah, I see that they will stay for the next few years, of course, but I don't see that these roles will cover the data ownership. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the data ownership will still stay in the business areas where the data is born and handled. Yeah.
That's a separate question. I will post after this question. So that data ownership, because that's also very critical. Who is business data owner? Who is technical data owner? I will pose this question. Daniel, coming back to you. You just skipped this question.
Yes.
It is coming back to you. What
yes, thank you. I would like to get Marcus's opinion, just one or two sentences, and then I'll loop back to my original.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi,
And
Marcus.
that's timely, as I need to drop out for a few minutes at 11:30 local time here. Hello from the Basel area. So look, guys, very interesting discussion, and I think there's no right, no wrong. Yeah, there is, I think, a balanced question now needed in operating models. So the operating model I come from is, and don't get me wrong, I never met a CDO. I only worked for CFOs. Yeah, why? They drove the transformation. They drove the DNA, digital analytics agenda. They drove the data quality, and they gave me, in the pharmaceutical industry, later consulting, later on in emerging tech, the mandate. Yeah. Also, if we talk procurement or line of business, CPOs. Yeah. They bought our stuff. They bought our data products. They implemented it. They owned it. So that may open up the question, who owns data products and owns data governance? To me, that's the line of business. I think you will discuss this later on. Now going backwards to what has been discussed, I think we need to be careful, really careful now, creating more silos. We have a CDO. We have now a really new chief AI officer. I'm doing an education in this front at the moment. And to me, these roles are more orchestrators and multiplicators. This is not really sitting in IT, nor is it sitting in the business. It's operating in between. Yeah. And I think this is probably the secret sauce and the multiplication factor of those new roles to work in an interdisciplinary way, especially when we talk AI initiatives. I was really astonished what Marek said. Yeah, give me the data and stuff. This is impossible if you are regulated. In Europe, we are regulated. We have an EU Act. Even in the US, you're regulated. We have ISO 20401 standards. Impossible. Yeah. And or you shouldn't do it. Can be really, really dangerous. So you need some kind of governance. And that governance or mandate also drives you in the business ownership and data ownership. Okay, so we can use the AI governance piece not to only slow down and govern an initiative. You can also use it to derive the mandate to get it done properly between IT and the business. Balance it out, clarify the ownership. So the ISO is a really, really strong argument. So whether this is now orchestrated through a CDO role or a chief AI officer role, who cares, as long as it's done properly and has an impact.
Thank you, Marcus. And I think it's a great segue to what my original question was about, because I see a risk when you put that role in IT, you're driving it as an IT organization. Whereas the core of this, why do we even work with data? We want to increase our operational efficiency. We want to have higher quality. We want to use less resources. We want to get products on the market quicker. All of these are operational challenges. We use the data for the purpose of solving business problems. So I'm seeing a risk if the CDO role sits with IT under an IT umbrella, as you very clearly pointed out, Marcus. If it sits there, it's a risk that you're not really sort of in alliance with line of business. So it needs to be in between. And how do you find the right spot in the organization hierarchy where you can work with both business and IT and be the segue in between? And I think that perhaps is the biggest challenge when I'm looking at the CDO role, that it is put in a place where you don't have the right conditions to succeed. So that's my thought on the CDO role and looking at the data product. All needs to be driven from operational excellence. It needs to be guided with a good architecture, and it needs to be federated with all your subject matter experts being able to add their insights and their knowledge into your data layer. But that's my perspective.
Which is perfect, right? As we all talking about, we all know in data practices, first there is data governance. There are normally two pillars, data governance and data management. Governance is to manage it and management is to run the pipeline, deliver the project. Now, as you correctly mentioned, that in the middle, there has to be another practice, which normally globally people are talking about data practice management. And that is what I'm advocating as well, that CDO should own this department or whatever LOB you want to call it. So this sits in the middle. Now, okay, let me touch base what I'm talking on Monday. Maybe you guys can pick it up from there. In data practice management, I categorize into two pieces. One is foundation of data practice, which contains 5 subdivision I categorize. One is it manages governance and compliance. Secondly, it manages all tickets, whatever tickets comes. Then if they want to monetize the data and create partnership with external parties, it manages that. Emerging technology strategies, data culture and literacy enablement. These are the traditional activities any organization do, any CDO do, right? But that's, for me, that's not a failure, because every CDO or anybody can do that, because this comes under running a business. I call it BAU activities. The other pillar which I brought in is 4-4 formula. It has 4 core dimensions. I will touch base on the first dimension, core dimension, which has 4 sub dimensions. First one, I say this CDO role has to look into products which are sitting on shelves, because Gartner says 75% of data products sit on shelf. So CDOs are not looking into it. CDOs are looking into governance piece only. They are not looking in this, let's decom this 75% of project. Second sub-pillar, product with challenges. More often we have seen that in POC pilots, projects are very good. The moment they go into production, problems start coming in. As you are so much on dependent on vendors, you are asking them to fix it, and we all know that it's not going to happen. So that's another sub dimension I feel CDO need to look into it. Third one, I feel data products in view. What I mean is business knows what they want, but they do not know the technology. So that is where they go to a vendor, and everybody now and then come and say, hey, we had a discussion on it, right? Structure data into LLM. It's not going to work, but they have been selling it. So within the organization, there is no such a role who can say, hey, it's not going to happen. When we say not going to happen, of course, everything can happen, but it has to meet the ROI. It cannot be so expensive that it does not meet the ROI, right? And the fourth and not the last one is sub-dimension of the first core dimension is new data products not in view, which normally CAO or C digital officer brings the expertise from the global market and say, hey, business, globally, people are using this new product in the market, use it. So business is very busy in business. So this CDO role, I personally feel this CDO role should be CDDAO role, something like that. Chief Digital Data or Chief Data Digital Analytical Officer. One team has to manage that. It cannot be multiple teams. Marcus just mentioned CAIO is also coming, right? AI role. AI, again, everything sits on data. I think this another role will again create a confusion, because this role will bring use cases from the market and sell it to business. Business will say, hey, looks very good, develop. Then there is no CDO role who knows which is the right technology in the market. So I feel that is the reason, this data, again, bringing back this thing, data practice management. So now I will go back to Marek. My next question, the reason data product ownership, the moment we go into federated approach, last time we had centralized approach, we had one enterprise data warehouse, maybe a couple more, and it was very easy to find 1 or 2 souls to own it. But now there are many data products, tons data products. where do this data ownership sits? When I say data ownership, in my point of view, there are two kinds of ownership. One is business ownership. Second is technology ownership. If there are, the other day, Nicole was mentioning, like one of the customer has 1,600 data products. Do you believe, can you find 1,600 technical owners? Not possible. Someone need to know that my ABC products can deliver XYZ requirements. So it should not create new. There has to be a metadata which is telling, hey, I already have a product. So how do you see, Marek, this product ownership? Let me put it on table. I feel data product should have business owner, one-to-one relationship, and multiple data products. Technical ownership still sit with CDO team. That's my take.
This authorization for the products comes from the business first, because why all these products were created, that they were created because of some business needs, or some financial needs, or maybe some cost savings needs. So there were always something behind the scenes that didn't come from the data team.
Yeah.
99% doesn't come from data team. So the first point is each data product should have exactly one-to-one business owner, but it might be the person who sat and had the questions or the real needs for more multiple products in time. So he could see on sort of an umbrella of these products because they are evolving, and they could be a variance of these products, and there could be also the application layer, which didn't exist at those days. So it evolves, but it's usually the business guy. So could be a financial director, could be a sales director. Very often is a guy from the logistics. They had billions tons of products, on the warehousing, on the material. I've seen like 10 different applications, looking at the same data differently on the different part of the process in the warehouse. So they had millions of products. They had some legacy systems and new ones, but behind the scenes on the data level, these owners are narrowing very, very sharply. So usually it starts with the umbrella too, but from the top line perspective, there is always not the CDO, unfortunately. It was usually CTO. I didn't really understand why, because somebody who bought this architecture or bought this server. So that was from the history, but this guy had no clue about his products. He had almost no clue, about that. So he used these kind of a data analyst guys, but they were not real data analysts. They didn't do the business. They usually did the analytics on the server sides or on the infrastructure side. So these people came from infrastructure, but most of the task and requirements fell upon them. So they wanted to answer. And when they found out they are extremely busy to keep on answering these questions, so they started to, hand it over to data analyst team, like a real data guy team. And from that perspective, started this relation, kind of a triangle. So business guy, and he put on both sides to more technical CTO and CIO guy, and then this analytical. And there was no master guy, on analytical part. There was no like a chief data officer. The problem was this chief data officer never spent the time on board. He was never, invited on board. CFO is always on board. CSO, whatever happens on the sales side, he sits on the board. There is a general managers, there are different directors, but CDO guy, however, he was really, maybe deepest in the business perspective from the data. He was never invited to boards. So there was still this kind of a triangle. So we had a CTO, but he didn't know anything about the product. So we asked the guys on the analytics, and